Welcome to the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. My name is Katie Dodd, and I'm a nutrition entrepreneur. I spent 7 years as a side hustler before diving into entrepreneurship full time. Before making the leap, I was bringing in 6 figures through my side hustle. If I can do it, you can too. This podcast is for dietitians, interns, and students who want to be inspired to start or perfect the side hustle of their dreams. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to the 204th episode of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. I almost failed. Now, I'm going to kind of tell you a little bit of a story here, and it ties into business. And when I'm talking about it almost failed, it's not necessarily in business, but it's just such a great analogy to business that I'm like, I need to do a podcast episode about this. So let me back up a little bit. I just got back from Florida. I was there for a week. If you're a regular podcast listener, then you likely have heard me talking all about Dietitian Side Hustle Live and Smart Success Healthcare Live. I was in Clearwater, Florida for a full week, and it was phenomenal. It was amazing. But I live in Oregon, and my little body got settled into 7 days of living my best Eastern time zone life. And then when I flew home, the jet lag is real. I actually don't really have a hard time going to the East Coast, but it's coming back that's a little bit harder. And I think some of it is the jet lag, but I also think some of it is the brain lag of, all of that thinking, leveling up, peopling, all of that stuff. It's like when I get home, I just crash. I'm just so tired. So I got back on Monday night. It was like Monday afternoon, but Eastern time, it was Monday night. I was 7 o'clock and I was ready to go to bed. I did go to bed at 8 o'clock my time, but that was like 11 o'clock Eastern time. So that was okay. But I was so jet lagged and so tired. And the next day was Tuesday. And I was like, I'm going to take it easy today. I'm so tired. I'm just going to take it easy. I'm going to rest. But I forgot about something. I forgot that my son, his name is Gavin, he's 13 years old. He had a field trip with the school that he didn't want to go to. And he's like, hey, Mom, can I opt out of going to this field trip and we could do something together? And I had told him, like, sure, yeah, let's do something. But if we do something, we're not just going to hang around at home all day playing video games. We're going to go field trip ourselves. Kind of forgot about this until, Tuesday morning, I'm getting ready in the morning with my journal and my coffee. And I was planning to go on a little bit of a run, but then I was going to come home and, relax till my 13-year-old comes in and it's like, Mom, what are we going to do? So initially he wanted to go hiking, Crater Lake. Crater Lake is our only national park in Oregon. It's beautiful, but it's a little bit longer of a drive to get there. And my daughter was in school, so we had to be back before she got off of school. And so there's this hike that I've been wanting to do for a while called Pilot Rock. Pilot Rock, it's a hike in Southern Oregon. And so I told my son about it. I'm like, okay, this is like a 45-minute drive to this hike. And is this something you're interested in doing? But it's a very difficult hike. This is not an easy peasy little hike in the woods. I will say I think I bit off a little bit more than I can chew. I did have a plan to go do this last year. So last June I was planning to go hike Pilot Rock with a friend, but I ended up getting COVID. And the COVID is rough. The COVID I had was very, very rough. And it took me a long time to even get my whole breathing capacity back. So that completely fell off the table. And this particular hike is pretty dangerous. And so there's certain times you just don't go. If there's snow and ice, there's rain, you don't go. So anyways, so here we are Tuesday morning, jet lag tired, but you know what? I'm a mom and I show up when my kids ask me to. And so we are driving kind of more Southern Oregon, almost California. I live like 30 minutes from California. So this was really close to the California border. And we go to hike Pilot Rock. So let me explain a little bit about what Pilot Rock is. It isn't just a hike in the woods. It actually includes rock climbing, grade 3 and 4 rock climbing. I actually had to like Google what that means because I'm like, what's that even mean? And I will tell you guys, before we even went, we watched a YouTube video about how to get up the very last part, which is the rock climbing. You could do this hike, go to the base of this kind of rocky section and then leave, but we wanted to get to the top. And so we watched this video on YouTube. It was about 7 minutes long and it told you how to get up each section. So a lot of it's pretty easy to get up. It's hands and feet kind of climbing up, but there's a few sections that are really big where you got to put your hands in certain places, put your feet up and really, push and pull at the same time. And so we watched this YouTube video and it showed how to get through I think there was like 5 or 6 different spots and it showed you where to grab, how to get up, but then more importantly, how to get back down. And so we watched this video. We even upgraded to YouTube Premium. like a free trial because with that you could actually download videos. So we downloaded it to my phone just in case we're on the mountain and we need to figure out where do we put our hands and feet. So we prepared roughly, maybe not as good as we should have, but we prepared enough. So to kind of describe what Table Rock looks, or there's a hike around here called Table Rock. So if I say Table Rock again, just know that I mean Pilot Rock. So Pilot Rock is, oh golly, I looked this up ahead of time because I'm like, what is the geologic feature of it? It's like a mountain, but then at the very top of the mountain, there's this rocky section. To me, it kind of looks like a, an eraser on the end of a pencil. Like the eraser, put that on top of a mountain and imagine it's all rock. That is Pilot Rock. And it's called Pilot Rock because it used to be kind of a navigational point for people in Southern Oregon of like, knowing where they're going because it's kind of a very recognizable spot. Um, Interstate 5 is the main drag that goes through Oregon, and from I-5, you could actually see Pilot Rock. And so, I see it all the time. I'm like, I want to go to the top of that. So let me describe this hike to you guys. So this particular hike, I kind of think of it as three different sections. The first section is beautiful. You park, there's a little bit of a red flag actually, because you park and there's a box and you open up the box and they want you to write down your name, the time you left, and how many people are in your party, and you're supposed to say when you come back. Like, okay. It does say that this is a moderate to very difficult hike. Okay. It goes up 1,000 feet in elevation. Round trip, we did about 3.5 miles, so that was up to the top and back. So not like crazy length, but 1,000 feet up, that's it's a bit. And I will tell you guys, my body was acclimated to sea level. So so describing this hike in three different sections. The first section is kind of like a walk in the park. It is beautiful. I mean, gosh, the Pacific Northwest is just glorious, and flowers were blooming. So it's like literally the birds are chirping, the sun is shining, flowers are everywhere. It is beautiful, green, lush, lovely hike. I'm like, oh, this isn't that bad. This is pretty amazing. The next section got a little bit harder. This is where they started having more of that incline. This is where we started really gaining that elevation. I think I was reading somewhere there's like 18 switchbacks, and a switchback, if you're not familiar with mountains, instead of going straight up a mountain, they have you kind of go over, kind of switchbacking back and forth up the mountain to make the incline not so bad, but it was bad. So I'm breathing heavy and it's a struggle. I'm like, this is a really steep hike. And I'm used to steep hikes because I live in Oregon. So it wasn't like horrible, but it was pretty darn intense. I will tell you guys, nothing humbles you more than having like a 13-year-old say, Mom, sure. And I'm like, I'm going as fast as I can. Anyways, that part was hard. It was very hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was rough, but I did it. And then we made it to the base of the rock climbing spot. And I'm looking up at it. It's real big. It's real steep. And I don't really know rock climbing terminology. It wasn't the kind where we needed ropes or anything, but it was legit. Essentially, there's like this section, kind of like a crevice, like a corner you can go to, and that's kind of where you would climb up. And so we started climbing up, and it wasn't bad. It was definitely a full body workout. Normally, when I hike, I'm not tired. I can hike forever and I don't get tired. If I hike real long, my feet will start getting a little sore, maybe the knees, maybe more recently my old lady 40-year-old hips, but not too bad. But this was like a full body workout because you're literally grabbing, pulling, climbing, using your chest muscles, your back muscles, all the arm muscles. And so we're climbing, we're going over those sections, easy peasy, until we get to the one section that's really hard, really hard. Now I will tell you guys, I'm tall. If you didn't know this about me, I'm 5'11". Being tall really does help when you're climbing rocks. I'm like, how do shorter people do this? But we got to this one section and it was really, it was hard. This is where I almost failed. So there's this section and there's these spots where you put your feet, but it kind of went, I don't even know how to describe it because I'm so bad again with rock terminology. But essentially I couldn't get my feet where I needed them to be. I just couldn't get high enough. And if I put my foot in this one spot, I was leaning back too much and it was dangerous. Had I fallen, I probably would have broken my back. And I'm like, I'm a mom. I'm not about to break all of the bones for a hike, but I really wanted to get to the top. I've always wanted to get to the top of this, and my son really wanted to go. And so I'm on this spot and I just can't get up. I can't leverage myself. I'm not strong enough to pull myself up. I can't get my feet positioned to push myself up, and I'm stuck. My son had gone up before me, and I was like, buddy, I don't think I could do this. And so we're like, okay, well, what are we going to do? Well, let's kind of pivot. Let's think what we could do. So my son came down because, he's 13 and, he's super tall. He's like over 6 foot now and confident, comes down like, okay, push me up. And he's like, where do I push, mom? I'm like, no, put your feet up. And so anyways, that didn't work at all. It was just too much. He couldn't even push me up over this thing. And so I went down, I went back up. I tried different sides. I tried different angles. And I finally told my son, I'm like, Gavin, I don't think I can do this. I just don't think I can. I am so sorry. And it was still cool. It was a wonderful view. My son is so kind. He's like, that's okay, mom. Now, he had left a backpack we had, like I was kind of handing him the backpack and he was grabbing it. And, as we were going up the mountain and the backpack was up there. So he still had to go back up and get the backpack. But he ended up kind of disappearing for a minute and he was trying to find another way to get me up this darn mountain. But there was no other way. This was the only way. And so I'm standing there and I'm just so frustrated. And I'm like, I've made it this far. I don't want to give up. I don't want to give up on myself. I don't want to let my son down, but I also don't want to kill myself. And so I was just sitting there feeling so frustrated and so disappointed in myself that I wasn't stronger and couldn't do it and all these things. But then I finally decided, you know what? Let me try one last route or option. It wasn't really a route. So again, this is a crevice. I'm in a corner and I turn around, I shove my back against the wall, push it as hard as I can. And I put my hand as hard as I can against the other side of the wall and I lift my feet up and I'm holding myself. I'm like, okay, I think I feel steady. And I go up like a centimeter, not far at all, just 1 centimeter. I'm like, okay, I'm holding it steady. Another centimeter, another centimeter. And I just keep doing this. And my body's tired. I am shaken. But at this point, I'm not letting go because I'm not dying. And so I ended up getting all the way to the top. And right as my son comes around the corner to come back to find me, he's like, you did it. And I don't know, I don't think I've ever felt prouder. And he's like, I didn't think you could do it. My son is my biggest fan, but even he didn't think I could do this. I literally almost failed. This was like so close to failure. But right when he saw me, I was at the point where I finally was high enough and I was able to get up. And I only got up by scooching. Scooch, scooch, scooch. It took a lot longer than I thought. It did not look like the videos. It wasn't what I planned, but it worked. From there, it was easy peasy, honestly, to get to the top. And we got to the top and it was beautiful. It was beautiful, but I will say we were planning to eat lunch up there and we did. Well, like a snack. We got these protein boxes from Starbucks and put them in a little freezer bag I had. But there were all these bugs up there. So we're like eating, like, this is so fun. We're like being bombarded with all these bugs, but the views were gorgeous. You could see California and Oregon. You could see Mount Shasta, which is a volcano with snow in Northern California. It was just like, it was stunning. It was beautiful. If you follow me on Instagram at the Katie Dodd, I was sharing some images and it was just such an incredible view. And I was like, wow, I can't believe we made it to the top. Got a little selfie with my son and it was glorious. But then I'm going to tie this back into business in a second. Maybe you're putting together all the business analogies I'm about to pull in for you guys. But then we had to get back down off the mountain. I'm not going to lie, getting down was actually so much easier than I thought. Um, because it was kind of like a gradual decline. Actually was sitting on my butt and kind of scooting down the mountain. During certain spots where there's like the big drops, you actually do have to turn around. And because I watched the YouTube videos, I knew how to like position my legs and drop down and not die. And getting down was actually very, very, very easy. I did put a bunch of holes in my pants. My son's like, Mom, you're getting all these holes in your pants. I'm like, I don't care. I'd rather be alive than I'd rather be alive than, worry about pants. So anyways, I got off the rock part, but then I actually did fall. I fell 1.5 times. So when we were walking down that one steep part that I was mentioning, the not so fun part to go up, going down's not too hard, but you got to do that little shuffle. A lot of the dirt was pretty loose. I stepped at one point and like, because the ground was so loose, the dirt just slid and I ended up kind of flying in the air, landing on my hip and my elbow. Wonder if you could see. You probably can't see, but I have a scraped up little elbow. And luckily, it was mostly dirt. My hip did hit a rock, but it was like a flat rock. So it hurt, but not as much as, my pride. So I jumped right up like I didn't happen. Although my 13-year-old, at first he's like, are you okay, Mom? And then immediately laughs at me once he knew I was okay. And then the second time, I'm trying to be so careful and I fall again. But this time I learned and I caught myself on my hand in quite an impressive move. If you know, like, it was kind of like a side plank, or like if anyone knows like a side plank where you have like the star move. I caught myself and it was quite the impressive move. and then made it down to the rest of the mountain. Great, wonderful trip. So as I was hiking, I was thinking of business. I will tell you guys from my Blog Boss Mastermind, when we meet in person, we do 2 retreats a year, and not every time, but most every time we go on a hike. We go on a hard hike. And during the hike, the whole purpose of it is we are pushing ourselves to do hard things, not just mentally, but physically. And we're always tying in business analogies when we're doing these hikes. But when I think of this particular hike, like I said, this is probably when it comes to physical things that I've done, this is probably the closest I've ever gotten to failing of not doing something I really wanted to do. Because physically, I didn't think I could do it. And so let me tie this whole story into business because, again, as I'm hiking, that's all I can think about. So I think so often when we start a business, we think like, okay, I am going to start a business. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to have fun. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to make it to my goals. Think of your goal as the top of the mountain. So anytime we start something in business, we're super excited. And that's how we were when we started, right? Okay, we're here. A little bit of a red flag when we saw, okay, they want to know what time we left, what time we went get back. We get back. What does that mean? Are we expected to not come back? Like, do they send a search and rescue team if we don't come back? So a little bit of a red flag. So maybe you're like that in business. You get started, you're all excited, you're all motivated. Maybe you see little red flags and you think, nah, I got this, easy peasy. Start going up the journey of business. It's all beautiful, sun shining, birds are chirping, everything's awesome. But then suddenly business starts getting hard. Steep incline. You're breathing real hard. You're like, whew, okay, this is harder than I thought it would be, but I'm going to keep going. It's still a wonderful journey. And then you hit the rock part, the mountain, and you look up at it and you think, oh my gosh, I've come so far. I have to hit this goal. I have to make it to the top, but I don't know if I could do it. And then you get to a point where you try to do it and you fail, because I did fail. I don't even know how long I was at that spot. I did fail. And in business, what do we do if we fail? Now, I talk a lot about failure. I talk about how we need to build failure into our business plan. That's something that came from Gary Brackett. He is a former NFL Super Bowl winner, amazing man who is now an entrepreneur, and he's a lovely, wonderful human. And he's the one who said that quote, build failure into your business plan. And it really resonated with me because I think so often, especially us as dietitians, we think of failure as bad. Like we're so focused and we get sucked into the perfectionism because we're like, everything has to be perfect. I got to do everything right. So that way I don't fail. Like that's our whole plan is like, I need to get everything perfect so I don't fail because failure is bad. But failure, you guys, is actually a good thing. We talked about this at my event we did last week. We talked about the 2 sides of failure at Dietitian Side Hustle Live. We talked about there are 2 sides of failure, a good side and a bad side. The bad side is if failure leads you to quit. If you throw up your hands and say, see, I knew this would never work, I'm just going to quit. The good side is that, first off, if you fail, that means you actually started. That's more than most people will ever do. If you fail, it means that there's important lessons to be had. And it means that the next time you do it, you're more likely to be successful. And so when we understand that failure is a part of the journey, failure is a part of the plan with business, with apparently hiking, climbing a mountain, then it shifts our perspective. So that when we fail, when things don't go the way that we thought they would, it's like, okay, oh gosh, I must be crushing it in business because I finally failed. And this is part of the journey. This is part of the process. Now, what can I learn from this and keep going? So again, thinking of this mountain, I'm at the spot. I literally think I failed. I've told my son, I can't do this. I believe in my heart, I cannot do this. But again, what do we do when we fail? We try and we try and we try, right? I always say pivot, twist, and turn. But sometimes we also have to slow down and we got to just think and we got to try to do things different. And sometimes the journey is slower than what we thought. I mean, it took me a while to inch up that little mountain. Like it was just like a little snail's pace, but I made it to the top. But then after we make it through that failure, still hard, still journey to the top, and we make it to the top and everything's awesome. We've made it. We've reached our big goals. Sometimes the top isn't exactly what we thought either. Now, the top of this mountain was beautiful. It was gorgeous, but I mentioned the bugs. The bugs were everywhere. They were swarming us. It was actually a little bit unenjoyable. I'm a really positive person. So I'm like, oh, nature, but I don't know. I was trying to put a positive spin on it, but it was like not good. So I think of that sometimes when we reach our big goals. Yes, it's amazing, but then sometimes it's not always as amazing as we thought. Like sometimes there's negative things there. And it's like, okay, well, that's part of the business journey too, right? And then once you're at the top, it's like, okay, where do we go from here? A lot of times in business, it's ups and downs. It's like, okay, Now we got to figure out how to get off that mountain. And even though I had success, I made it to the top, I still fell. But you know what? The next time I fell a little bit better because I learned from the last time. So, so anyways, I hope that story is kind of helpful painting this picture of how business is a lot like climbing a mountain. Even if you get to the point where you almost fail, just understand that it's part of the process. It's part of the journey. And had I failed, honestly, I already had a plan in my head. I'm like, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get all beefed up and strong. And I'm going to come back here with my son and climb this darn mountain. But I didn't have to do that. But understanding that the business journey, it's exciting when we see people doing it. And we're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to do this. It's going to be amazing. And it can be amazing in the beginning, but then it gets hard and then it can get impossible and then we can fail. But we just need to remember that failure is part of the process. We need to pivot, twist, and turn until we achieve our goals, make it to the top of the mountain. Even if there's bugs, it's still awesome and part of the journey. So, anyways, that's my story. So, I think because I do like to have these podcast episodes where you're actually like, kind of thinking critically about things. And I want you to think about, what do you do when you fail? What do you do when you fail? And even the question might be is, do you allow yourself to fail? When I tell you I want you to fail, because I actually want all of you to fail, how does that make you feel? Does that make you feel like, oh, that's uncomfortable? No, my whole goal is to avoid failure like a T. Or are you okay with it? So I guess that's the first question is, do you allow yourself to fail? And if you haven't failed yet, then the question is, have you really started? And have you pushed yourself to do something scary? Or have you held yourself back because you're so scared of fear? And if you have done something and you failed, what did you do? Did you give up? Did you throw in the towel? Did that voice come in your head and say, see, I knew you would fail. I knew you weren't good enough. That mean voice that kicks in. Or did you pivot, twist, and turn and keep going? And if you're at a point where you're like, okay, I failed and I stopped, use this as encouragement to start pivoting, twisting, and turning. And if you haven't taken enough risk that you failed, use this as encouragement to know that, okay, I'm going to dive in and take risks because I want to fail because that is part of the journey. And without that failure, I'm not going to get to the top of the mountain. So let's reflect about failure. I will tell you guys the next day when I woke up, my body was sore. So I'm like jet lagged, tired, and the whole body hurts. I've never done a hike because we literally climbed a mountain, and I've never gone on a hike where my whole body was sore. Like I said, my chest muscles, my back, they're still a little bit sore. It's been a couple days. Oh yeah, I still feel it. So anyways, that is the story of how I almost failed climbing a mountain and how it ties into business. So that's all that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening to the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you so much. And if you want to learn more about all the ways we could work together, go to katiedodd.com. Katie.com. Katiedodd.com is my Linktree page, and links change based on different things I have going on, but you can learn more about the ways we could work together. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all next week on the podcast.